cows. The next night he had another dream. And in this dream he saw 7 healthy, full, mature, good-looking ears of corn consumed by 7 ill-looking, deficient ears of corn. And Joseph said, here is what we should do. There are going to be 7 years of plenty throughout the land of Egypt. That period will be followed by 7 years of famine. So Joseph went on to say, during the good years, Pharaoh, during the years of plenty, save, put aside, store, prepare, because they will be needed during the 7 years of famine, and there will not be anything extra to save or store up or keep during those years. But if we will do what we should do during the first 7 years of plenty, we will have adequate supply to be able to have plenty to eat and to give. Now, in other words, here's what I think. Save now so that in the years to come, and we all have our whole life, so that in the years to come you will be able to eat and have the necessary subsistence and have adequate supply to give. Because Egypt had extra to give to the brothers and to the family and to others that were starving. Enjoy the rewards. This is number 5. Psalm 71:18 says, now when I'm old and gray-headed, that's me. Oh God, forsake me not, until I have shown your strength to this generation, and your power to everyone that is to come. Psalm 92:14, they shall still bring forth fruit in old age. They shall be fat. I don't like that part. They shall be fat and flourishing, and I love that part. To flourish means to thrive, to achieve success, to stay active and engaged. Isn't flourish a wonderful word? I'm glad the Lord put that in the Bible. So we're going to talk about a whole life. I'm so glad there are young people here. I hope you will also be here next week when we give instruction as to how you can absolutely have financial success. And I will touch on it tonight, but we're going to go into what my daughter-in-law calls the nuts and bolts of it next week. And I'm glad we have the young people, but I'm glad we have middle-aged because it's never too late. And when I taught this or spoke on this out at the camp meeting, a man came up to me out on the sidewalk afterwards and said, so what do I do if I'm 60 years old? And I said, you start. You start. And maybe you even make up for lost time, if possible. Anyway, if I was a pastor, I said this at camp meeting, and I'm going to say it here. If I was a pastor, I would want some retired elders in my church that had planned well and could still support the church, along with all of those who are still working actively. It would be helpful because we do want to carry, I'm speaking from an older person. I'm still very interested in supporting the kingdom. I'm still very interested in helping send younger people to foreign lands to spread this gospel. And to do that, you have to have the means. And the means in our culture and our society in the world is money exchanged for goods and services, is it not? Okay, let's zero in for just a couple more minutes on that spend wisely. I think I have listed there are 3 needs in this area. You need a spending plan, you need a cash flow record, and you need management of debt, especially credit card debt. A spending plan is just a little bit more positive word rather than a budget. A budget is such a dreaded word for so many people. So I just twisted it a little bit, and I'm calling it a spending plan. Businesses have spending plans. Churches have spending plans. Any entity that has money coming in has a spending plan, a budget. And so consequently, families and individuals need a spending plan. So what is a spending plan? Well, I'll tell you, the first time we ever thought about this term or considered it, carefully thought about it, we were young, we had little children, we were struggling, we had credit card debt. We were just in this situation like everybody or most young couples and most families get in from time to time. And we decided, Jim and I, that we needed a spending plan. So he said, okay, you put it together. I said, I will. So I did. I, listed all the things where the money has to go. The house payment, food, car expense, utilities, maintenance, just all the places that money has to go. And he came home from work a couple days later, and I said, I did it. I have a spending plan, but you will need to bring home $600 more a month for this, for this plan to work. And my sweet husband, in his calm way, said, there's an old adage that I want to remind you of. If at first you don't succeed, try again. So it took a while, and so I tell you that to tell you the first time you sit down to do this, you may have to redo it, and you may have to squeeze it over here a little bit to make it go all the way to the end of where it needs to go. But a spending plan is important because otherwise that money is just going out and it's not covering everything and you get stressful. And so you have to have a spending plan according to your income. The second thing that I think is very important is a cash flow record. Now this is where you may say, you have to know where your money goes. And how many times have you said, as I said, and as I hear people say all the time, I don't know where my money goes. I just don't know where it goes. I mean, I get paid, the check's put into the account, and before I know it, we're getting really low, and I don't know where it went. Well, that's where a cash flow record will help you. What is a cash flow record, and how does it go along with a spending plan? Now, you do this in any way you want to do it, and we're in the electronic age right now, and you might want to make a chart on your phone, on your iPad, on your computer, or someplace. When I first started this, I did it manually on paper and pencil with a good eraser. And I put all the columns, the first column is always church and giving. Everything you give to the church, but also if you give an offering at camp meeting, that's giving. If you do something else, that's giving. That goes in that column. And then you have these other things that I mentioned. You have columns for your rent or house payment. You have columns for your gas, but also all your car expense. You have columns for utilities, repair and maintenance. When something goes wrong with the air conditioner and you have to have somebody out to look at it, that's repair and maintenance. And then you have telephone, that could be a separate column, and gifts and all. And then you finally have out at the end a miscellaneous, and that catches everything else that you didn't put somewhere else. Now with your cash flow record, if you would, get a receipt when you spend any money anyplace. I consistently am in the grocery store or in the bakery or in Home Depot or wherever, and the person in front of me, the clerk will say, "You want your receipt?" No. I want my receipt. I always want my receipt. Get your receipt, ladies and gentlemen. Stick it in your purse in a certain spot. Guys, stick it in a pocket. When you get home, put those receipts. You don't have to do this every day, but when you get home, take those receipts and put them in some place. At our house, it's on the desk under a rock. That is my paperweight. But the receipts go in that same spot all the time. And then maybe a few days go by, and then I sit down, and I have all those receipts, and it doesn't take very long at all. You plug them in to the column where you are doing your cash flow record. At the end of that month, you're going to know how much you spent on food, how much you spent on your car, how much you spent on utilities, and everything else you're going to know. So never again will you be able to say, "I don't know where the money goes." And the reason that I suggest you do this is because we want to save and invest, and we're going to get into that. But if you don't have any idea where your money goes and there's nothing ever left over, you won't have anything to save and invest. And that's where success comes in. The other thing I want to say is manage your credit cards. Way back when I was trying to make a spending plan and we were in a difficult place, I think I had like 14 or 15 credit cards. Every store had its own credit card back then. Every gas station had its own credit card. Every entity had its own. So if I wanted to buy something at Walmart, I would have to have a Walmart credit card. Then if I wanted to go to Kroger to buy groceries, I had to have a Kroger card. Then if I wanted to put gas in the car, I had to have a Shell or Marathon or some kind, That day is over. I'm so glad. 1 or 2 credit cards will do everything in the world that you want to do. But you'll know if you'll put it on. Now, you may say, "Well, I just use a debit card, and it'll show up on my statement." But will it be plugged into your columns? It needs to be in your columns for you to know where you might find money that you could invest or save. And let me just give you this little hint. As you go through your own life and you think about it, you may find someplace that you're spending money that maybe you could lessen that thing just a little bit and you would have some. Let me tell you about a young man that I was speaking to. He and I were good friends several years ago, and he wanted to talk to me about investing. He said, "I have nothing to invest. I just spend it all. I have nothing to invest." So we just began to talk about his life a little bit, and he said, every morning I get up, I work 5 days a week. Every morning I stop at the coffee house, my very favorite coffee house, and I get one of these wonderful coffees to go and have it while I'm on my way to work. And I said, "You don't ever make coffee at home?" He said, "Nope. Mm-mm." I said, "And you never drink coffee at work? Don't they make coffee at work?" "Yeah, they make coffee, but not like what this coffee house has." And you know what? I like those too, don't you? I do. I like those. But I said, well, how much do they cost? And he said, oh, $5, $5.50, $6. And I said, well, if you go to work 5 days a week and you stop every day and get one of those coffees, that's $25 a week. Considering 4 weeks in a month, that's $100. If you could just lessen that a little bit, you're going to find some money. And then there was somebody else I was talking to. This was a gentleman several years ago. And we were talking about how to find money to invest. And he had a job where, now, I think now most companies, if you have to go out on calls, they may give you a company credit card or debit card or something. I'm not sure because I've been out of the workforce for a while. But back when I was working, if we had to go call on a client or go call on somebody, we could keep our mileage record. And at the end of the month, we would be reimbursed for the mileage. We, filled out your spending sheet, and then you were reimbursed for that mileage. And it might not be a whole lot, but if you bought your gas during the month, and that's all been accounted for, and then they hand you a check of reimbursement, that might be something that you could take partially or all and invest it. I don't know. I'm just trying to give you ideas in your own life. You will be able to find places that you maybe could lessen a habit in a way, and then that could be money that you could invest. So anyway, I think needs in your own life and my own life are that we need a spending plan, a cash flow record, and we need to manage the debt, especially credit cards. And I'm just going to say 2 minutes on credit cards. They can get out of hand so easily. If you don't have an emergency fund and you ruin a tire, you have to buy that tire on a credit card. If you don't have money in there, you have to, and then something else can happen, or you go out to eat a whole lot of times that month or whatever. I read recently, I think it was in the month of June, that because the interest rate has been going up so much, that credit card interest rates now averaged 20.4%. And I just gasped to think about that. That credit card company is getting so wealthy on our interest that we have to pay when we let that credit card get high. Let me just show you something. If you're paying 20% and you let a balance continue to grow month by month by month by month and increase and increase and increase month by month, at the end of the year, you would be absolutely amazed at how much you spent on interest. Wouldn't it be wonderful if you invested and you could get 10 or 20%, and that came back to you? Now, it is going to the credit card companies. And I want to tell you another thing to just be aware and to consider. Companies pay big bucks, huge amounts of money to marketing specialists. And a marketing specialist will tell that company, if you advertise in this way, it'll pull them in. If you word your advertising like this or that, it will grab them. I don't think I brought it, but I will next week. There is a window replacement company that puts a flyer in our mailbox all the time. Does anybody else get that? Okay. I get such a kick out of it because there's always an emergency that you got to act really quick, because this special is only for until August the 12th. So you really have to act fast. So you let that go by, and the next week you get another one, and this time they're offering a better deal. But you got to act quick. You got it, because this deal is going to be gone. And they catch you like that. They dangle bait. Marketers, they know what to do. They know what to do. Another way they can get you is by saying, you better act now because our inventory is low, and when it's gone, it's gone. And that ad may have gone for 6 months or a year or 18 months or 2 years. Now, I don't know if they keep replenishing that inventory or what. I'm just telling you, this is where we can really get tripped up if we are not wise and consider. Before we finish tonight, I want you to look down on your sheet. I just want to, before I leave all of that, I want to say to every one of you, you can find places to save. You can, and you can find places to invest. You may say, I don't make enough money. Well, you just keep looking at your budget, looking at your plan, and see where you can save a little. And let me show you what will happen if you can only save a little. And I've entitled this an incentive for saving, or an incentive for investing. And I pause here to say to you, all of you, I will never say anything in these 2 sessions that is not real, that is not doable, that is not honest, and cannot be verified. You can leave here tonight and go home and look on your computer, your phone, or wherever, and verify every single thing that I will say to you tonight and the same next week. It's very open. That's why it's the success secret that's not a secret. Because it's out there and you can verify it all. I want you to look at this example I have here. And before I tell you about the 3 principles above it, I want to tell you about the example. Let's read it. A 22-year-old, I'm so glad we have young people in here. But like I said before, at any age is when you can start. Doesn't matter when that is. Or continue. A 22-year-old individual just out of college and started a job decides to put aside $100 each month. Now, I told you about the young man that had coffee every morning on the way to work, and how he could find $100. Okay, I'm using him in this example. He decided to put aside $100 each month. That was $1,200 a year. At the end of 10 years, he or she had saved $12,000. Even if this individual never added another dime to the account, but realized an annual return of 10%, that's a return on investment of 10%, look how the account would grow. Now, I will tell you in a little bit why I chose 10% and why I've got the ages here every 7 years in this individual's life. But at age 32, he had saved $12,000. He invested it into an account where he could make 10% return on investment. 7 years later, he had $24,000. His money had doubled. Now, he's not put anything else in it, but his initial $12,000 is now $24,000. 7 years later, it's 48,000, and then going on down 96,000, doubling again 192,000, doubling again to 384,000. And if he left it there during all of his working years, from the time he got out of college until he was retired and ready to start drawing on it, he would have over $750,000. Does that seem unreal to you? It's not. It is not unreal. It can happen because of three things. Number one is the magic of compound interest. And it's not magical. I think magic is a neat word. That's why I put that in there. It's not magical. It's just doable. It's perfectly able to be accomplished. Compound interest means it snowballs. Brother Kidder lived in Chicago area for a long time. He probably built a lot of snowmen. He knows how to build a snowman or a snow fort. And here's how you do it. You get a little bitty snowball and you put it down on the ground that is covered in snow. For you Arkansans that don't have snow very often, that's one thing I miss. I've lived here 22 years and I do miss that we don't have snow very much. But my husband doesn't. He's happy. You put that little snowball down and you start rolling it down your yard, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger till you get to the end of your yard. And then you just turn it and you start going the other way. And all of the snow you started with in that little snowball has accumulated a lot more all the way around it. Now when you make the second pass down your yard, you are adding snow on top of what you added when you rolled it the first time. And it gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger till you have to sometimes have help getting it up in the body of the snowman because it's so big. That's what compound interest is. The man that in our example saved $1,200 the first year. And he's getting, if they only paid interest once a year, which is not the way it's done, but if they did, at the end of the year in his account, the investment firm where he had his account would be adding $120 to his account because 10% of $1,200 is $120. Now he has $1,320. At the end of the second year, interest has been paid on the whole $1,320, and so the interest payment is $132 added to the account. Now, starting year 3, he's got over $1,400 in that account. So you see how the interest, 10% every year, and yet more interest and more interest and more interest is added to the account. It's compounding. He's now getting interest not just on his original $1,200, but on all the interest from the 2 and 3 and 4 years back. This is how money doubles. This is how it doubles. Now, if you have a calculator on your phone and you want to whip that phone out and get that calculator out, I want to say to you the second rule. That's compound interest. The second rule is the rule of 72. This is so important to you, ladies and gentlemen. Don't memorize this and don't forget this, because throughout your entire life, the rule of 72 is going to be important to you when you're wanting to figure out what is the return on investment that I can get, and how will it affect how quickly my money will double. Okay, this is the rule. If you know what kind of a return on investment you're going to get, and you divide the number 72 by that amount, Right now, I want you to do it by 10 because of this example. Put 72 into your calculator and divide it by 10. And what is the answer? Okay, we're just going to go round number 7. That's the number of years it takes for your money to double. Okay? I saw something in the paper Sunday. Bank OZK is offering 5% interest on a CD. So, put 72 into your phone, into your calculator. Divide it by 5, because you're going to get 5% interest. How long is it going to take your money to double? 14 years. What if you could get 8%? 72 divided by 8 is 9. 9 years it would double. What if you could get 12%? How long would it take your money to double? 6 years. You see, the rule of 72 is really a great thing to memorize and know, because whatever return you're going to get, whether you buy stocks, whether you buy a mutual fund, whether you buy a CD, whether you have a bond, whatever you have, just a savings account, a money market, you can always figure out how long it will take your money to double. And that's what the rule of 72 is. The third thing that I have listed there is the time value of money. And that just means the earlier you start, the longer it has to grow, the more you're going to have. Time is an important thing. If you start up and put money into an account and in 2 years you think, I think I'll buy a car. And so you take it all out and you buy a car. Well, your car's going to depreciate. You're going to enjoy driving it, but it's going to depreciate. And now you're not going to have anything growing. So if you do that throughout your life, you're not going to find any portion of your living or your life or your portfolio of investing that is growing for you. And next week, we're going to find out the ways that we can invest. And I'm telling you, 10% is very doable. It's very doable. And it has been historically for quite a long time. Now, you have to ride the ups and downs. But if you buy a piece of land, your land is there, but you want to have a return on that investment. So look at this. Let's say you just bought I don't have any idea how much acreage is, but let's say you bought some land for $5,000 and you let it sit there for 7 years. You weren't getting anything on it then, but then you decided to sell it, and wow, I can now sell that piece of land for $10,000. Your money doubled over 7 years. You were getting a return on investment of 10%. But I don't have any idea what land is worth or what. I'll just tell you this, though. We have lived near Cantrell for 22 years. And when we moved there, that was all field. Now, I probably would not, probably didn't have the money to buy any, but if we had of, and I had had any forethought at all, or knowledge of what was going to happen on Cantrell between 4:30 and going out there 6 or 8 miles, you could have been, I mean, it's mind-boggling. Land can really appreciate. And that has become such a corridor of businesses and restaurants and strip malls and OZK Bank. That's a beautiful building, isn't it? Money can grow, and it can double and double and double again if it has time. So the snowball effect is the compound interest. This rule of 72 gives you the equation and the answer of what you can expect, the time limit of when you can expect your money to double if you know what the rate of a return is. And thirdly, the value, the time value. Time just gives it time to grow. Time. That's why it's so important for young people to have this knowledge if they can while they're young, and find in some place in their spending plan a little bit of money that they can start consistently putting into a place that it's going to grow. And we'll talk about those next week. But for now, we're going to end this by, I do want to say to you, I welcome any question. I hope I can answer it. If I can't, I will research it and bring you the answer back. I will do that for you. But is there any general question now before I turn this back to Brother Kidder that is burning in your mind that you want to ask of anything that's been said? Perhaps not, but next week there may be. Yes.
You mentioned you could create your own, but do you know of a, I'm sure like on Excel and things, but do you know of a good already set up kind of cash flow and a spending budget? Is there anything that you know that's easy to get to already?
I know on Excel. I know on Excel that you can make it the way you want it. Make that chart the way you want it. It's set up, and then it is so quick to plug those numbers in. Like I said, this shouldn't be something that is robbing you of your time. It isn't. It's just that you need to know where you spent that money. Like the other day I went to 4 places. I went to Trader Joe's to get a couple of things. I went to the bakery. I wanted to get those wonderful big cinnamon rolls. I went to Kroger to get a few things, and I went to the post office. I wanted to buy some stamps. I came home with 4 receipts. They just came out of my purse and right on the desk under the rock. And I didn't get to those and anything else that I had laid there for probably 4, 5, 6 days. But then I had a little bit of time, and I wanted to apply, and I put that in, plugged that into the various categories of where it goes. And it is an amazing thing to even year by year think of how much utilities have gone up. You actually have the numbers and the figures, and you can see. Or it lets you know that on certain months your food was X, and the next month it was Z. Because you had a lot of company, or you went out to eat a whole lot, or whatever. You know, you just look at these numbers and you know how you can, what you want to do. And it's a very individual thing. You know, you're not going to do what I do. I'm probably not going to do what you do. But Jim and I, we know what to do for us, and everybody can come up with their own. But I think Excel would be the easiest place. And you can have that right on your laptop or your phone, wherever, and plug it in. It's so easy. Anything else? Yes, one more.
Do you think it's better to start, like Rick and I both own our own businesses, so we don't have a company,
Mm-hmm.
Retirement plan we can get in. Do you think an investment, like company is the best to just go to?
You know what? Can I save that till next week? Because I'm going to talk about the nuts and bolts of how, when, and where. And if that's okay. Because there definitely is a way that is best. And I will get into that next week, but rather than right now, if that's okay.
Thank you, Sister Gaddy. She laid down the holy conviction on me because I take pride, not in an arrogant way, but I love giving to the kingdom. But I'm not sure that I'm preparing, should the Lord tarry, when I'm 65, 75, 85, to be the giver that I am now and continue that through my life. And so, boy, that really struck a nerve with me. I don't ever want to look at a need and say, I'd love to, but I just can't. I don't ever want those words to come out of my. I don't ever want to see a guy going to Timbuktu, Africa, and standing up and saying, if I just had 10 people to give $100 and say, I'd love to, brother, I'll just pray for you. I always want to be able to do that. And so that's a great thing. You know, I've been guilty of this statement before. All I can do right now, and you may talk about this next week, Sister Getty, but it'd be hard for me to even come up with $25 a month to save. Well, then just save $25 a month. And I said it in the beginning. I believe it's true. If you'll start being a good steward, then the Lord will help. The Lord will bless. Remember, He works in multiplication, not in addition. And so if you'll start doing something, God says, okay, I see what you're doing, I'll do something else. Let me say something to you with young kids, because it is hard to save when you have kids. And especially when you keep having kids, it just gets harder and harder. The one good thing about having kids is normally you get a tax return. I mean, that's not the only good thing about having kids. But generally, you get a refund, okay? Here's the thing. I just did it again to make sure I was right on this. And Raylan and Macy messed out, but Rexton's going to get this. If you'll take $1,000 at 1 year old and put it in an account that gets 10% annually, when they're 74, they'll have $1.3 million, and all you made was one $1,000 payment. Now, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say, can you guys afford $1,000 one time for that little girl to be a millionaire when she retires? Yeah, you can. We all could scrape somewhere and find it. Grandma and Grandpa maybe figure it out if you, no, I'm just kidding. But if they're 10 and you just invest, I'm sorry, $1,200 if you invest $1,200. So you got to come up with $200 more. Maybe I think she's still worth that. If they're 10 and you do it, they get like $560,000. If they're 15 and you do it, it's like $320,000, without them ever investing another dime. Okay, I know we're trying to build our retirement, and we need to keep doing that. But somewhere along the line, one tax return 1 year, one rebate from something, one Christmas bonus at your work, you were going to take a big vacation. Instead of taking a big vacation 1 year, put that in an account for your kids. I don't care if you go to your will and say they can't touch it until they're 74 so they don't mess it up. That's up to you. But if you'll do that, you'll start them out with something better than maybe you got to start with. Okay? And so you may not be able to save up a ton of money, and you may not be able to, because you haven't been saving, but at least you can help your kids start that way. And so that's a big deal, the snowball effect. Thank you, Sister Gaddy. And I hope next week you have more questions. I don't know your finances, but I know we ought to have more questions about how to be financially successful in life. And so I encourage you this week, think about some things. If you would prefer, because it may be something personal, and you would like to just write that down and not put a name on that, or if you just want to text that to me personally, I'll forward that to Sister Getty, and she can just address those things without ever saying who it is. If you just, maybe you're in a debt situation, or you can't figure something out, you don't want to testify to that, that's no problem, I understand. Send me a text or just write that down, and we'll get it to her, and she can just address it that way, and it'll be anonymous, okay? All right. Lord, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for giving people wisdom and allowing them to be here. I thank you for Sister Gaddy and, God, her passion, Lord, to see the people of God not only being debt-free, but planning to be givers and supporting your kingdom. You still choose to use men and women to support your kingdom. And you want to use your children to do that. You don't want to have to go get that outside of the world. Lord, you would love to bless us to give to your kingdom and to give to these causes. And so I thank you, Lord, for tonight, for your word. And help us, Lord, to reflect on this. Look at our lives, take it to heart, and be doers of what we're hearing tonight. In Jesus' name, amen. God bless you. We'll see you on Sunday. I don't think anything between now and then, church-wise. So we'll see you Sunday. Have a great night.